two courses that we normally run ahead of it, other than just setting up users and some things like that. So we are going to be training on scheduling, and remember again, what we're learning to do today is to configure the schedule. This is not learning how to make an appointment. That'll take 5 seconds to learn how to make an appointment. What we're learning today is how to set up and configure our schedule. Part of what I'm going to cover in the next couple minutes here is stuff that I would normally cover in Module 1, and I'll recover it again when we get to Module 1. So one of the things you guys want to do is everyone needs to take this URL, which is your URL now, https://nmm.mymetfusion.com, and you need to put that into a favorite or something so you can get to it on your desktop easily. You don't have to put the login part.
Can you email me that?
Sure.
Or just the group?
Yeah, I can. It was on the smart sheet, but I can definitely email it here right away to you. So that you'll want to put, you know, like I said, you'll want to put it in a couple places. What I would recommend is putting it either as a bookmark or a favorite. And separately, you may want to put it somewhere in your smartphone. And the reason being, in case you are not at your primary computer, remember, you can still access the system as long as you know 3 things: the URL, your username, and your password. So link to site. Okay, so that URL there, nmm.mymetfusion.com, will definitely get you there to the site. All right. Once you're there, and we'll talk in the next session. We'll talk about usernames and all that. I don't want to use up too much of the scheduling session to cover that. That stuff is, like I said, covered in Module 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in, but know that every person has their own login, and login should never be shared between people. So each person will have their own login to the system.
Quick question, Andre. Is there like an administrator rights I can assign to a couple of people that are going to be able to do whatever they might do? Okay.
Yeah, we have, like I said, all of that's covered in Module 1, but yeah, we have 4 levels of profiles. The highest one is called a primary admin. We'll make a couple of your folks primary admins. They can then approve other admins, and they can do everything that I can do. So absolutely, we will make a couple of your folks primary admins. We covered that, like I said, in Module 1, so when we get to Module 1, because that'll take like 20 minutes, and I don't want to take 20 minutes out of this session covering that material. So for now, just understand that that will happen in Module 1. All right. So most of the things that are of a configuration nature, once you've logged into the system, first of all, I should ask, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good. So once you've logged into the system, most things that are of a configuration type nature are done under admin options. So you're going to click admin options, and that will then take you to a whole page full of all of the different system administrator functions, okay? The one that we're going to work with today is called scheduling administration. So we're just going to click scheduling administration. And that's going to take us in to administer the schedule. From there, you've got 3 options. The licensee is the top level. Those are things that'll become more relevant as you guys add more locations. The idea is that some things can be set at the very top level, and they can apply downward to all the locations, and then other things can separately apply and be set up at the location level. So for the most part today, we're mainly going to work at the location administration level, which is the level, you only have 1 location right now, and we're going to work at this 1 location. Now, the first thing that we need to do when we set up the location is to make sure that what I call the broad location parameters are set up correctly. So we're going to just walk through this setup screen here. One of the things we can see right away is that the time zone needs to be Pacific, so we're going to set this for Pacific time zone. Now, the next thing that we set on this page is the availability grid. So remember now, as we think about eMedical Fusion and scheduling, the way this thing works is there's different levels of availability. There is availability for the location, and then separately there's availability for each practitioner. Now, the way the system works is that in order for any practitioner to take an appointment at a given time, the location has to be open. So let's think of the location as kind of that master point that controls whether or not the front door is open or not. And if the front door isn't open, then nobody can do any work, okay? So with that said, we like to set the grid broader than your normal hours. We want to set the grid for the location to be kind of the outside boundary of the hours, both opening and closing, that you would ever want to be able to take an appointment. So not your normal hours, because we're going to control that later. So what would you say is the outside boundary? Pardon me?
7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay. So you're never going to take a special occasion appointment that you want to take, say, at 7 o'clock p.m.?
No. No.
Now,
our
let me say this.
Our earliest would ever be 7 a.m. Latest is probably going to be 5.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mean you can't come back and change this, guys, so don't misunderstand me on that point. You can always come back and change this. The only thing is that most people, since you rarely go to this location change screen, most people are going to forget about it. So what happens typically is 6 months from now, the doctor needs to take an 8 o'clock appointment. You've made all the changes, and it still won't take that 8 o'clock appointment because somebody forgot to come back and change the location. So just kind of remember that you're setting the location up to end at 6. It's not a problem, but like I said, if you try to do something special and it's not working, it's probably because the location is not set that way. All right, so we've set the location grid from 7 to 6. We got our time zone set, and we're just going to save our work. So that's about all we really need to do there. One thing I'm going to do, let me do this right here. Is there anybody that was not on one of the demos before and has not watched the awareness training? Is there anyone like that?
We have one person here right now that hasn't.
Okay. So let me just point out a little bit for that person, since we've got one. I'm going to go to my demo setup here. What we're trying to accomplish is a schedule that we will have all of the appointment items set up. We'll have all the constraints built, and therefore it's very easy for either a patient or a staff member to make an appointment. For example, let's just take Jumping Jack's Flash in my demo environment here. We're going to go there. We're going to go to scheduling for him, and we're going to simply schedule him an appointment. What I want to show you is kind of how this thing ends up so we understand where we're going. So where this ends up is, notice that what I have here is a series of white squares and gray squares. The way it works is a white square, I can make an appointment. A gray square, I can't. Over here to the left, I have all the different activities that your practice will offer, which we're going to be setting up today. So if I want to follow up office visit 60 minutes, it'll then show me the availability for that particular visit. To make the appointment, all I do is just click the white square and confirm, and it's done. So it's very simple to make an appointment for either a patient or a staff person. What we're doing today is just configuring the schedule so it can work that way. All right. So,
Andre, I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
So, is there any availability in the scheduling system? So, for example, what I don't want to happen is a patient to log on and go for an availability to make a new appointment. And if there are no appointments at all, they see it all wide open. Is there any way for us to block out certain time periods to make the perception that there are appointments there?
You can set a different schedule of availability that patients see from what staff can see, if that's what you're asking. So if you wanted to, for example, only make certain appointments available, I mean, I would only do that when you're not busy. But once you're busy, I certainly wouldn't recommend that, because
obviously, you know, when we open this LA clinic, somebody's going to look at it and be like, boom, these people have no appointments. The other thing we do. You can set different patient availability is the answer to that. Yes. Okay, and then the other thing, and I don't know how we do this, and maybe at some point I should give you my login to our existing system so you can see how we set it up. We really have two columns. We have one column for new patients and procedural type patients, and then we have another patient column for like blood draws or somebody coming in for a B12 injection or somebody that isn't going to really take much time whatsoever. So
you're going to have a separate activity for each one. So each one of those is going to be its own activity, and it'll have its own duration. So this is much more robust than most scheduling systems you work with. So, I mean, you can have 50 items, and each one of them is going to have, if one takes 10 minutes and one takes a half hour, you're going to give it duration of 10 minutes. You're going to give the other one duration of half an hour. So you don't have to really worry about like having just 2 columns, because each appointment item itself is going to have its own set of parameters.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah, each item has its own separate parameters. You don't have to like put them into just into 2 groups and say these take a lot of time and these don't, because you can have appointments from any number of minutes up to 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours. So each appointment is like its own entity. The way is the best way I can think of it to describe it to you. So let's move along in the setup, Brad, and hopefully that question will be answered as we go through the setup here. All right, now remember, we are in your environment. We're setting up for real. We're not sandboxing today. That's why I said make sure your scheduling coordinator's here, because we are actually setting up for real. Now, you may have a little bit left for homework, but we're going to get through as much as we can of your setup today. Okay, so we've set up your master location hours here. The next thing we need to do is come down the left side and go to schedules. Whoops, and it looks like because I did the other thing, I've gotten knocked out. So we'll go back in again. When I logged in through the other way, it doesn't like 2 logins on the same computer. It knocked me out. So we're going to go we're going to go here to schedules. And what we're going to do now is we like to set what we call the default schedule. And again, keep in mind, this is for the location. Remember, each practitioner will have their own defined availability. But again, what we're talking about now is setting the location hours. And what we said so far is that the location is open from 7. So what I'm doing here is coloring. So once again, white squares represent available and gray squares represent not. So if I click a square twice, it'll be white. Now, it'll be pretty tedious if I had to do that for every single square. So all I can do a diagonal here and just click the whole thing, and now the whole thing is white. Now, let me ask you this. Do you guys see any patients on weekends at all?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to gray out the weekend by simply just going from top to bottom. You notice what I'm doing is I'm just clicking at the top, the first square, and then I'm clicking at the bottom, the last square, and that then basically makes that color go away and brings it back to gray. So what I've done is I have set the Monday through Friday. This is the location grid again. Keep in mind, this is the location grid, not the not what your real hours are going to be. We're going to set that later. So I'm going to go ahead and save that at the location level. Now, also at the location level is where I can set my holidays if I want to close the place for certain holidays. So, like, I think the next one I can think of is 4th of July. I don't know if anybody can think of one before that, but let's go to July. We'll click Show Schedules. And July 4th is actually on a Tuesday. So, Brad, do you know right now if that location is going to be closed on Tuesday, July 4th?
Yep, it will be. And I think there's Memorial Day right before that, too. Let me tell you the date.
Okay, I might have missed Memorial Day. You're right. So, the way this works is this is like the override schedule. And if I click a day with a check mark, which says I'm overriding the day from the normal schedule, and if I don't do anything down here, then I just close the day. So all I have to do to close the day is simply to click this checkbox and click Save, and I've now closed the place for July 4th. Okay?
Got it.
Let's go back to May and pick up.
May 29th.
Pick up May and May 29th. The scroll over is a Monday. We're going to click the box, and we're going to save. Now, let's say that there was a day that the location was going to be open just part of the day. What you could do is, let's take Thursday the 11th here. I'm just going to show you for illustration. Let's
do, Andre, go to December, go to Christmas Eve. We're only open till 2.
All right, perfect. So we go to Christmas Day, to December. Christmas Eve is, well, actually Christmas Eve is a Monday though, so you probably, Christmas Day is a Monday.
Yeah,
so, and the Eve is a weekend. So it's certainly going to be closed on Monday, and Friday you might choose to close at 2. So let's say, for example, on Friday you wanted to close at 2. So what we do is we check the box. We check the box. Checking the box makes it override, and now what we do is we color all the way down to 2 o'clock. And so we color down to 2 o'clock. And that will then we made white squares down to 2. Notice 1:45 is the block that starts at 1:45 and it ends at 2. So we've colored in now from 1:45 to 2, from 7 a.m. to 2. And so that makes us open those days, those hours, and then on the 25th we're closed. Now, if you ever have any doubt about what you've done when you do this override business, the easiest way to check it is to use review schedule details. So now you can see, if I use review schedule details and go back to December, that we should see that we are, in fact, closed on Monday, which we do. And then we see that on Friday we're open until 2. So we've now set up the schedule to be closed on Monday the 25th, open on Friday from 7 to 2 with the white square. So white is available, gray is not. Same thing on the scheduling side and on the availability side. So bottom line is you guys can go back and fill in the rest of your holidays if there are any. We've covered Memorial Day, 4th of July, Christmas, and Christmas Eve. If there's a couple in there that we missed, you guys can go back and go to the location area, come to set one-time availability, check the box. That makes it an override and close for the day. So very easy to set up your. Now, the beauty of doing it that way is, remember, if the location's closed, nobody's open, so therefore I don't have to tinker with any provider's individual schedules, because by closing the location, I can have no activity for that day. Now, on the other hand, you wouldn't want to close the location if the provider, let's say the provider was on vacation, but I assume you still are doing blood draws and some other activities. So you just, in that case, you're going to want to just make the provider not available, but not actually close the location, because when you close the location, you shut down all activity for that day. All right?
Yep.
Are we making sense so far?
Yep, making a lot of sense.
Okay. All right. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up resources and then activities. So resources, of course, are the people that actually do the work for the most part, but also resources can be any other constraint on an appointment. And we'll talk about that in a little while. But, for example, we have practices that do things that involve maybe like IV chairs, and the IV chairs are the resources because they're the constraint. I only have so many of them, and so that constrains my activity. So for the most part, the resource, the physician, is going to be the constraint. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to focus on adding the resources. So, and by resources, what we mean here now is anyone who needs to be on a schedule that can be scheduled by a patient is considered a resource. They don't have to just be a physician. So if they independently see patients and have a schedule for patients to see them, then they need to be on the schedule as a resource. Okay? So let's start with your primary physician name. What's the physician's name for this location?
Christopher.
Is it Dr. Christopher?
Yep. And last name is A-S-A-N-D-R-A.
Okay. So Dr. Christopher Asandra, we want to enable him and we want to make him gender neutral. So we want him, in other words, he can service both genders, so we're going to make him not applicable. And other than that, we don't need to do anything else other than just save the record. So we've just made him, we've saved the record with his name, and we made him enable. That's all we have to do. We don't need anything else on this screen. The next thing we need to do is to build a schedule for Dr. Asandra. Or is it Asandra? Which way do you pronounce it?
Asandra.
Okay. So we're going to build a schedule for Dr. Asandra, and it's really the same exact construct that we just did with the location. We're going to start off, we're going to add a schedule, and we're going to call this schedule the default schedule. The first schedule, I always call it the default schedule. In the default schedule, it doesn't have any restrictions, meaning it applies to any program and any activity. So think about this. The activities are the actual things that people are going to do. They're going to schedule. That's the half-hour appointment, the one-hour appointment, the new patient appointment. Programs are just groups of activities that we can use to, excuse me, that we can use to group activities together that are similar just from a grouping perspective so that they're easier to find. So programs don't really do anything. They're just groupings of activities so that if you have 100 different activities, we can group them into, say, 5 or 6 groups, and they're easier to find, okay? So the default schedule, again, is not constrained, so we just leave it set to any and all, and we just save it. Now, with that default schedule, we're going to set his weekly availability. So what we're looking for now is what are the hours that Dr. Sandra is routinely available to see patients?
8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
All right, so we're going to do an 8. We're going to go to 5 o'clock, actually 4:45 block on a Friday, and we're going to click there, and that'll give us all white squares all the way across. So it creates the diagonal. Just we click the first square and the last square, and that creates the diagonal. All right. Now, let me ask you this. Does he take a defined lunch hour? Do you want to set aside some time that he can't be booked for a defined lunch, or does he just figure it out?
Nope, no lunch.
No lunch? Just got to work all day with no food, huh? All right.
Figures it out.
All right. So we've got him set in Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and that's his default schedule. Now, once again, kind of like the location, if we know of some days right now when he's not available, again, we don't have to put holidays in here, but if he's got vacation to Hawaii planned or something like that, we can put that into the one-time availability for him. Do you know if he's got any time away right now?
We hope not.
Hope
not sure right
now. Yeah, okay. So, but anyway, it's done the same way. You go to the date, you go to the month, you know that he's going to be gone, and once again, you just simply put check marks on those days. And if you save that, that will take those days off his availability without affecting the other days. So it's the same exact thing we did at the location level. We're just going to change, it's just doing check marks here on the days that he's not available and then saving it. I'm going to go ahead and reset that so I don't set anything we don't want to set. Okay? So other than that, that's pretty much it. We've set him up. We've set his weekly availability. He doesn't have any one time because Brad told him he can't have any time off for the first 18 months until the clinic's full. So he's kind of stuck. All right. Now,
Andre,
do we have enough?
Here, Andre, quick question while we're here. So we typically set up our appointments either on the hour or every hour and a half. So does any of this have to do with what patients are going to see, or is this just setting Dr. Sandra's open schedule so far?
Well, right now we're just setting his open schedule. If we want him to only see patients on the hour, hour and a half, then we should go back and adjust that schedule, because basically remember that unless we do something special, patients and staff are going to see the same schedule. Now, if you want patients to only see that hour thing and you want staff to see all schedule, we can do that as well. We have to just set up a different schedule, because a doctor can have more than one schedule. So, and I'll tell you how those schedules get applied. But if you're saying, are you saying that you always, like, for example, well, you know what? Let's come back to this, Brad, after we've set up some activities, because we can't even set any special schedules until we've set some activities. So, because the special schedules have to be tied to specific activities. So let's go ahead now and set up a couple of activities, and then I think things will start to make more sense. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go to the programs area. Remember, like I said, programs are just like buckets of activities. And so the default programs that we have set up are called patient appointments. Now, patient appointments is a special program because that particular program defines what the patients can see. So only activities that we put inside of the patient appointments program can be seen by patients. So that allows us to have some activities that patients can schedule and some activities that patients cannot directly schedule. So again, that's a special one. Don't remove that one. Special non-patient appointments is one that most practices use, because that's how you're going to book the doctor for vendor meetings and other meetings that are not with a patient. And so that program is there for that purpose. And then we have new patient appointments, which every practice has new patient appointments. So for right now, let's start with that. And let me add one more program. Every practice has follow-ups of some sort. So I'll add a program for follow-ups. These are just buckets again, and all I do is just save it. There's nothing else to do with the program. It's just a definition. We're going to later add some things into it. So we've got a program now for patient appointments, for non-patient appointments, for new patient appointments, and follow-ups. All right, let's go to our activities now and set up some real activities. So the first activity I'd like to set up is I'm just going to edit one that's here called the new patient appointment. What do you guys call your new patient appointment?
A new consultation.
Okay, new consultation, new patient
So before you jump into this, Andre, well, just so you can think about this, many of our patients, when they're on our website right now, and I don't know how we deal with this, but so for example, patients will make an appointment for erectile dysfunction, weight loss, and low testosterone. And so when they go in there, what I don't want them to do is to choose all three and then it blocks out like 6 hours of appointment, if you follow me.
Well, I mean, you can control, okay, first of all, if we're talking about a new patient, okay, typically what you're going to do is, I mean, you're going to set up your intake process where there will be certain items that they can, because you're requiring advanced purchase, right? They have to pay for this first, right, for their new appointment, or can they just make an appointment?
Not in all of our clinics do they have to, but in LA they are going to have to because we're gonna need to order labs for them.
Okay, so let's just worry about LA for right now. So basically what's going to happen then is when we set up your item, your services for sale, you're going to have whatever new appointment visits you want to have. So let's say you have one that's called, you know, ED new patient appointment, and you have another one that's called ED and weight loss new patient appointment. You can have as many of those as you want. So tied to those then is going to be money, so they got to pay so much for each one of those. And then tied to that will be the actual appointment. So obviously, presumably the ones that are more expensive are going to be more time, but they're prepaying, so that's fine to block up more time if they're prepaying, right? So, I mean, that's the way it's going to work. Is it's not like a random thing. They will pay for a certain item that you designate, and then they'll be able to schedule that same item.
We have different fees for the consult.
Yeah, and then presumably we can set different fees for the consults. The way I understand.
Right, that's what I said. Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I said, maybe the ED new patient is $200 and that's a half hour, and the ED and weight loss is maybe $400 and that's a 1 hour. But yeah, you set your own prices and your own times. Everything is linked together, but you're going to set your own prices and your own times for each one of those activities. Not today. Today all we're doing is setting the activities. In admin 1 is where we'll be setting the prices, but right now we're just setting the activities. Okay?
Got it.
Okay. So let me try it. Let's see here. Yeah. So let's stay with what we're doing here. So new patient consultation. The next thing you want to check is the booking capacity. So presumably these are patient appointments, so there's only a booking capacity of 1. I know that some of the men's clinics, because we have some other clinics, and some of their activities they can do more than 1 at a time because there's some waiting and they got a medical assistant that's helping them. So if we get to that, we can increase the booking capacity. So we don't have to have 1. We can have more if we want to have more, if you have the capacity to handle more than 1 at a time. But right now, for this one, we're leaving it as 1, I presume, because the new patient, he gets one-on-one time with the doctor. All right,
yep.
We're gonna save that. Now the next thing we do is we go down the left side and we set these various parameters. All I'm going to do is work down the left side, so just kind of watch me carefully. So the next one is duration. Now is where I'm going to set the duration. What is the duration for this appointment?
1.5 hours.
Okay, so I'm going to delete this hour that's here. We're going to add a duration. We're going to make it for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to click finish. That you'll make sure it sets the duration just like so. Do not use series durations. Do not use those. Only use fixed durations. Okay, so 1 hour, 30-minute duration. I doubt you have setup time. Setup time is if you needed time to set up the room before they got there after another appointment. So most practices like yours don't have that. The next thing we do is we assign this activity to a program. So right now it's assigned correctly to both patient appointments and new patient appointments. So what that means is that patients can directly make it because it's assigned to the patient appointments program, and it's also in this program called new patient appointment because that was our groups, if you will. So again, because an activity can be in more than one program, we're going to leave this one in patient appointments and new patient appointment program as well. The next thing we do is we assign a physician, which we only have Dr. Sandra, and so we're just going to assign him. And that's pretty much it. There's a couple of other things that are optional. Resource pools, I mentioned this earlier. I just want to cover it briefly so you understand it. Resource pools are used in case we need a constraint on an appointment other than the physician. So let me give you an example. I have some clinics, for example, let's say you have 3 doctors, but you only have 2 treatment rooms. And let's say that some appointments require a treatment room and some things they can do in their office. So the scenario is that you want to make sure that you don't schedule 3 appointments at the same time that all require a treatment room, because then, Houston, you're going to have a problem. So what you would do in that scenario is you would make the two treatment rooms, you would make those resources, put those resources into a resource pool, and now assign that resource pool to every appointment that requires a treatment room, and then the system would automatically manage that scenario for you by not allowing you to make 3 appointments at once that all need a treatment room, because it's going to say no treatment rooms available. So the doctor's available, but there's no treatment room available. So that's the concept of a resource pool. Okay?
Andre, quick question for you. So in LA, as I told you, we're joining forces with another doctor by the name of Dr. Berger. So his schedule is going to be in here too.
Okay.
So at some point we should probably add him.
Yeah, we'll add him right after we finish this. Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, cool.
No problem at all. So so anyway, we talked about resource pools. The other optional piece I'll talk about is assigning questions. So questions are questions are exactly that. They're questions, but the context of it is, if you want to ask some question to either the staff member or the patient making this appointment while they're making it, that's what a question is in the context of this. So examples are, if it's a phone appointment, a lot of clinics are asking the question, what number should we call you on? Because the problem is we've got 3 phone numbers in the system, and you don't want the doctor trying to guess the right phone number when he's trying to call the patient. So we'll have a slot for you to just put the phone number for that particular appointment. Other things, sometimes because patients are now doing external testing, they've gone to Life Extension or they've gone to 23andMe or whatever, and they've gotten some tests and they want to review that. So some practices are asking the patient if, in fact, this appointment is being set up to review test results. So there's a lot of different things you can ask questions for. You don't have to ask them. I'm just letting you know that capability exists if you need to ask a real-time question at the time the appointment is being made. Okay? So if something like that comes to mind, let me know and I'll show you how we do that. But meanwhile, I'm just mentioning it so you're aware of the capability. So at this point, this activity is all set up. We're done with it. I'm going to go back here. We've set it up. It's called New Patient Consultation. It's got a duration of 1.5 hours. It's assigned to the programs of patient appointments and new patient appointments. It's got a physician, which is Dr. Sandra. Doesn't have any resource pools or questions. It is ready now to be actually made as an appointment. I could right now go and make this appointment on the schedule. Okay? All right. Now, let's go back to resources and add your other resource. So what's that other resource's name?
Doctor, and first name is Andre, A-N-D-R-E.
Okay.
And last name is Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R.
I like his first name.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Andre Berger, and what's his availability?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 5.
Okay, default schedule and weekly availability. Once again, Monday, let's see, you said 8 to 5.
Yeah.
Then you said Thursday and Friday?
Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday, okay. Okay, Brad's tough, so he doesn't get lunch either. Okay. All right, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 5. We got him locked in there. So now he's got a schedule. That's all it takes. He now is on the schedule. We haven't assigned him any activities yet, but he's on the schedule. So, all right. Now, let's go back and do some more activities. So we've got your new patient consult. Why don't you guys tell me what else do you schedule?
Well, what we should probably do is that initial one we did there, we should call it new patient consults. ED.
Okay, new patient consultation ED, there we go.
Yep. And then we would need one to be exactly the same that's called low T.
Okay. Schedule type is appointment-based schedule for everything that you're doing, so it's appointment-based schedule, not an event schedule. This was also an hour and a half?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to assign it to patient appointments. I'm going to assign it to new patient appointment. Assign physicians. We'll assign Dr. Sandra. All right, so that one's all set up. Just takes a couple minutes to set each one up. What's next?
Weight loss.
Still a new patient?
Yep. And then while you're doing this, Andre, can right now our system is color coded, and people are really familiar with the colors. Do you have that availability for us to see?
Not yet. No? It's something that we're working on. I expect it out in the next 45 to 60 days, but we don't have color coding right now. We don't have color coding at the moment. We're going to have it, but we don't have it at the moment. All right. Is this one also an hour and a half?
Yep.
And we're going to assign it to the same programs again. And we're going to assign the doctor one more time. Okay, so we've got those 3 new patient appointments set up. What else do we have?
We've got a EROS procedure, EROS.
Will a patient know what that is?
Yeah, and Andre, if you want, my people in the back are yelling at me. They can do all this so we can move on, so we don't waste your whole day.
And so we understand how to do it.
Yeah, and
no. I mean, what I like to do is just set up. I mean, the whole purpose of today is scheduling. So I don't, I do want to set up a number of different ones, and then at some point, you'll have some homework to do. But I do want to set up a number of different ones and get enough set up that we can actually go schedule and show how it works all together. So I do want to get enough done. I mean, we still have plenty of time. I mean, we're going to spend about an hour and a half in this session. I just want to make sure we thoroughly get it. So let's, but the main thing to make sure in your descriptions is, since not only staff are making these appointments with patients, just make sure that a patient would know what an EROS appointment procedure is.
Yeah, I think, we should just call it a new appointment EROS procedure.
Oh, this is a new patient also? This is new also?
Yep. They're all going to be the initial same, except the ending.
Okay, all right, and so we'll do the same thing again. I thought you were giving me a different one. That's why I thought we were going to like.
Only an hour. That's only an hour.
So that was only an hour. Okay. All right, same thing here, and new patient and assign physicians, and there we go. Okay. All right, what's next? Let's do a couple different ones.
Yep. So the next one's going to be for a hair appointment consultation.
Hair consultation?
I would call it hair restoration. And then maybe just throw the word new in front of it.
Okay.
And all then right. the only one this is an hour as well.
Okay.
And then the only one that I have left is for growth hormone. And then we've got a bunch of follow-up stuff, but if you want us to go through those, we certainly can as well.
Yeah, I do. I do want to go through some follow-ups and just set those up as well. I like to have a good cross section. set up here before we turn it over to you guys. Okay, so all right, so we got that. Now let's do a couple follow-ups. What do you have for follow-ups?
So this would just be a blood draw?
Okay, so we'll set up one called blood draw. Again, everything is an appointment-based schedule. The duration
so Andre,
of that?
In this Vegas or in this LA clinic, there are all these blood. Let's just leave it as this for now. Yeah. That we put in our system as a 10-minute appointment.
Okay. Uh, 10 minutes. Now, if we think about the way that, I mean, we can put a 10-minute grid, but that starts to get really small. Most people would leave it as a 15-minute grid. You may want to leave it as a 15-minute appointment because otherwise it's going to kind of hide that extra 5 minutes if you're on a 15-minute grid and the appointment's only 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yep, not a problem.
All right, so I'd leave it as 15 minutes. We're going to assign it to programs now. So let's see, we don't really, so this can go into follow-ups and patient appointments. And now we're going to run into a little bit of trouble because we haven't set up a resource. So let's stop for a moment and go set up a resource. Assume you've got a nurse, or I don't know how you want to refer to this resource. How do you want to refer to your resource that draws blood?
Medical assistant.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to those activities. Actually, we can just assign them from here. So we've already set it up, so we're going to assign the blood draw activity to that person. And I think I might have missed one of the setup items, so let's go back to blood draw. And let's see, just double check everything. We've got duration 15 minutes. We've got assigned to programs, which is patient appointments and follow-ups. We've got physicians assigned, which is our medical assistant. And no, that's it. So we got everything assigned. So that's the way we set that one up. What else might we have, Brad?
A testosterone injection.
Wow, we got some wimpy guys that can't do it themselves, huh?
Say that again?
I said got some wimpy guys that can't do it themselves.
You know, I don't, here's the thing, I don't know if we're going to ever want patients to do this. Yeah,
okay.
I think we're going to limit this.
If you don't want patients to say, well, I'll show you how we do that, that's good. So we're going to save it. What's our duration here?
15 minutes.
All right, so what we're going to do is when we assign it to programs now, we're only going to assign it to follow-ups. We're not going to assign it to patient appointments, and whatever you don't assign into patient appointments, the patient can't see it. So it's very simple that's all you have to do to make it not available for patients is simply don't assign that activity into the patient appointments program, and then the patients can't make it. So you'll be able to make it by going under follow-ups, but the patient will not be able to make it because it's not in patient appointments program, okay?
Got it.
All right. So we assign physicians, which I assume would be our medical assistant.
Yep.
And there we go. So now we've set those activities up. Anybody have any concerns at all about setting up the activities? This is the process you're going to use to set up all of your activities. You simply set it up the same way I have done. If you need some different buckets, you can come back here to programs and add more buckets, but so far everything fits pretty neatly under either follow-ups or new patient. But you can have more buckets if you want. But essentially just set up the activity, follow down the left-hand side, and set those activities up. So that'll be your homework. We'll be setting up the rest of the activities. What we're going to do is talk about some of the other items of setup today. So one of the other items of setup is under appointment book rules. So under appointment book rules, there's all kinds of things we can do. Most clinics don't use them, like appointment limits and things like that. Most people don't use them, but I'm going to just cover kind of the things that we do use a lot. Schedule rules is an area that we use a lot, and there's a default schedule rule that we need to edit. So I'm going to edit this default schedule rule. Notice this default schedule rule applies to any activity. And right now we're talking about patient availability, not staff availability, okay? So we're saying show availability on the next business day. Now, some clinics want a patient to be able to make an appointment same day, a lot don't. So our default setup is they can't really see any availability until the next business day. Now, is that what you want, or do you want something different than that? So in other words, if I'm a patient and I'm on the schedule today, I wouldn't be able to make an appointment before Monday.
Yeah, so in LA, here's going to be the issue. Patients are going to need to go out, and I'm not sure how I'm going to address this yet for patients that book online, is patients are going to be required to go and get a blood draw. In a perfect world, in all of my other clinics, Andre, we do in-house lab testing. However, in LA, because it's so small, I don't have the availability to put a lab in there. So my patients are going to go, I have to go out.
Okay, well, that's not a problem. Here's what we can do, Brad. We can set, remember again, we can set different parameters. So we can have a parameter that requires the appointment, the availability to go out, say, 7 business days, for example, for certain activities. So we don't have to just have, we don't just have to have one set of parameters. That's my point. We can have multiple parameters.
Yeah, so for testosterone, weight loss, and ED, and growth hormone, so the ED, testosterone, growth hormone, and weight loss, they would need 5 days.
5 days? Okay. So for right now, we're just setting the general parameters. So we'll leave those set at next day. Now, and then how far out in the future do you want users? Right now it's set to 4 weeks. Most people want to go further out than that. How far out do you want persons to be able to make appointments?
I mean, I think 2 months is fine.
Yeah, most people go out further than that. It's entirely up to you, but if 2 months is all you want, that's certainly fine.
Sure, let's go nuts. Go 20.
All right, 20 weeks, okay? All right, now, right now we've got the grid by default set to 15 minutes. So this is where we would change it if we wanted a different grid. Like right now, you've got, you do have some appointments that are 15 minutes, so a 15-minute grid should work fine. The last thing that we can change is, again, this only applies to patients. Disallow cancellations and modifications online within some time frame. So a lot of clinics use a day or some use 2 days. In other words, a person would have to call to cancel if it was closer than that. And that way, if you got a cancellation policy that requires a fee or something, you'd be able to tell them that at the time. So assuming you've already disclosed it. So do you want to have an online cutoff as to when they can change or cancel an appointment?
Yeah, at least 24 hours. What do you see the other clinics doing?
I'm seeing some 1 day, about 50-50 between 1 day and 2 days.
Yeah, I prefer 2. Yeah, let's do 2.
So let's go with 2. You can always change it. At least you know where it is. This is where we change it at. Okay. So what we did is we just set it. We set that for the grid 15 minutes. They can make appointments 20 minutes, 20 weeks into the future. They can't cancel within 2 days of their appointment start time. And we're going to set that. Now that's our default setup. Now, because we can have more than one set of schedule rules, we're going to add another schedule rule that's going to handle your other situation. Now the best way to do that is, let's see here, is we'll have to do one for each one. So you're saying this new patient consultation ED, that's one of the ones that needed 5 days?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Does your system, Andre, in a perfect world, this is what I would love to happen. I don't know if your system does it because I know there is some link between Quest. In a perfect world, here's what I would love to happen, is that the patient clicks that they want to make an appointment for weight loss. And there's a prompt that says, dear patient, we need you to go out and do blood work. And, what day would you like us to schedule? And again, this is a perfect wish list. What day would you like me to schedule that blood work? and we schedule it for them and make it happen before their appointment, because their appointment essentially without that blood work is meaningless. It's just, and I know you guys have.
What I would do is this. So yes, those two questions, we could make those questions before that appointment. You could actually, remember I told you we have questions, right? So basically what you just did was you gave me two questions you'd like to ask that patient as they're making that appointment, you know, which is, I forgot exactly, but you gave me, one of them was, what day do they want to, what day are they going to have their blood work done, I think was your question. So, and then in the same screen, you would tell them to be sure that their appointment is 5 days after that, the day they plan to get their blood drawn. So that would be a comment. You can deliver a comment. Okay. So let's do this for right now. Let's say that since nobody can go get their blood drawn the same day, and if you want to have 5 days, you probably really need to make the availability schedule starting at like about 7 days, because you gotta.
Our agreement with Quest right now is we get their blood we get the work within 2 days. So as long as, if we gave them 3 days to get their blood work and then we need 2 days, 5 is probably sufficient.
Okay, so then, and what you'd want to say on that screen is that you still would want to tell them to make sure that they don't schedule any sooner than 5 days after they plan on having their blood drawn. That way, at least you got a little cushion. All right, so let's go ahead and finish setting this up, and I'll show you how this is going to work. All right, so what this says is, for the new patient ED consultation, they won't even see availability for 5 days out. They won't even see it, so they won't even be tempted to make it sooner because it won't let them make it sooner. Now, we'll have to do that for each one of these activities, but I'm just showing you how we do it. We're going to set each activity up with its own little schedule rule so that it can't be made until we're ready. So let's go ahead to the next one. Set up the low T. I don't know about the ERUS. And same concept, 5 days, 20 weeks into the future, and 15-minute grid, and disallow cancellations, 2 days. Okay, so you guys can set up the rest of the schedule rules like so. Okay, that's the way the schedule rules are set up. You just need to set up the rest of them so that they function the same way. Now let's go back and add those questions that Brad is asking us to add. Questions are added at the top level so that they can be used by all the locations without having to be recreated. So we're going to go to licensee administration, and we're going to go to this area called data collection. Data collection, you'll see some questions already here. Again, questions can be here without you using them. So we're going to add a question, and the first question name is, I guess we'll call it day going to the lab, for example. So the question text would be, what day do you plan on going to the lab? Right? So that's our question. The question type is a comment, meaning we're looking for a text answer. It's not a checkbox. I guess we could make it a date, since date might be better. No, comment will let them say something a little bit different than a date. So we'll pick comment. We'll say that the response is required, so they have to put an answer, and the minimum length of the response should be. Let's say they can either say tomorrow, or they could say a date like the 5th or the 6th. So I guess they could say we'll make it a 1-character response. So they might just say like the 5th or something. And the maximum will be like 50 characters in case they want to write something longer. All right. So the default response is not valid, and we want to save it. Okay. So we set up a question that says, what day are they going to the lab? And it's a required question they have to answer. We're going to go ahead and save that. Now, the next question we're going to create is really not a question, it's more of a comment, but we're going to still call it a question. So this is information about scheduling new appointments That's good enough. So please be advised that as a new patient, you are required to have your blood work done at, is that Quest only or Quest or LabCorp?
We'll have both.
Okay. You're required to have your blood work done prior to your appointment. It must be done at least 5 days prior to the date. You can change this later. You set your appointment. Please ensure that you do not set the appointment sooner than this, else it will have to be rescheduled. Okay. This type of question, we're going to make, again, a comment question, but what we're going to do is we're just going to make nothing required. So there's no response required, and there's no minimum length. We'll just put a maximum length again, but nothing is actually required, okay? So default response can just be something like, I understand the timing requirement. So without them having to type that, that's what will show up. All right, and a default response is a valid response. So we made a default response a valid response, and we save it. So now what we do is we've just created those questions. We go to one of our appointments that we want to assign this to, and we simply go to that new appointment consultation ED. We go down here to assign questions. We click add question assignment, assign questions, and now we're going to assign the day going to the lab and then the information about scheduling. Those two questions are assigned to this appointment, and we can assign them now to any appointments without having to actually recreate them. After we've done that, we just click finish. We've assigned those two questions, day going to the lab and information about scheduling have been assigned. So it's time now to go and test some of this stuff out. The acid test is, can you make the appointment? Does the schedule look the way it should look? To do that, we exit out of there, and the receptionist view is the view that lets us actually make appointments. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select one like the ED. That's the one that we put that question on. We're going to first look at availability. That looks pretty good. It's an hour-and-a-half appointment. It starts at 8. We got white squares. Can anybody tell me, I'm going to see if you guys are paying attention now, can anybody tell me, guess why these squares right here are dark gray instead of being light gray like these squares? I can't make an appointment in there, but they're dark gray instead of light gray. Anybody know why?
They're not fillable.
They're not what?
They're not fillable because we can't see patients after that, or we pass our 5 o'clock cutoff time.
That's right. So in other words, but the dark gray is telling you something. What the dark gray means is that the doctor would otherwise be available, except I can't start an appointment at 3:45 if it's an hour and a half, because that wouldn't finish until 5:15. So that's exactly right, that the last appointment I can start is 3:30. Now, for example, we were looking at, I guess, which one was only an hour, Brad?
It's the hair restoration.
Okay. Now look at that one. That one's going to have a little difference. See, now I only have 3 of the dark gray squares because I can start one as late as 4 o'clock. So it's sensitive to exactly which appointment.
Couple questions, Andre.
Huh?
So, a couple questions. So for example, with our ED, low T, and other consults, we typically are only setting appointments on, for example, like in LA, we're going to set an appointment at 8, which 8:15, 8:30, 8:45, 9 a.m. are not available for a new consult. So how do we, and you know, many of these, you know, again, here's the issue is I typically only have one doctor. Typically we're running labs on that one patient, so we can't see more than one new consult in that hour-and-a-half or 2-hour period, depending on which clinic it is. So I wouldn't want the patient to be able to see 9:15. I'd only want them to see, for example, 8, 9:30, 11, 12:30. If you get my drift.
Yeah, I do. Now, here's the challenge. I mean, we can do that, but here's what I see that happens though when you force patients into that sort of rigor. What tends to happen is this. Let's say, for example, I really want my appointment to be 10:30 because I got a meeting that runs up to 9:30, but the only choice I have is either 10 or 11:30. So what I do a lot is what the patient behavior then, well, heck, I'll just make it at 10 and be late. So I'm not sure what your point is about making it only on those particular start times because, again, the reality is that patients have their own schedule and they can kind of come when they can come. Now, a lot of times people are doing that because of limitations in their prior scheduling system. See, we don't have those limitations. The system is still never going to let you have 2 patients at a time. I don't care what time that appointment starts. The system is managing the doctor's availability for you, so you don't really have to do those, to make those artificial adjustments like that with a scheduling system that works like this one does. We can do it. I can show you how to do it, but it just, like I said, what you tend to do is it tends to create gaps because, well, shoots, I can't come at 10, 11:30 is too late because I've got a 1 o'clock meeting. I could really come at 10:30, but if you force me to make one, I'm either going to not make it at all or I'm going to make it at 10 and just be late and hope you'll accommodate.
Yeah, no, I fully understand what you're saying. It isn't because our current system has limitations. It's really the way we've just set it up is that we always realize some of our clinics have 6,000 patients and we've got a bunch of return patients coming for all this stuff, and so we're gonna have to talk amongst our yeah.
I mean, we can do it. I can show you how to. I can show you a way to make it do that. I'm just saying that I think as you go into a new scheduling system that has new flexibility, I think you ought to reevaluate some of the business rules you might have been using that may not serve you well going forward. That's what I'm saying, because those types of rules, typically don't serve you that well. So I'll show you, like I said, either today or next time, exactly how to change it, but if you really want to do that, but I still recommend. The ones I've seen try it, they usually end up calling us to switch it back because it really does create blocks, and you get patients calling saying, man, I can make 10:30, but I can't make 10, I can't, 11:30 is too late. Is there any way you can accommodate? So, or else, like I said, they just make it and hope they can be late and you'll take them anyway. Anyway, so let's move on for right now. I think you're going to take that under advisement and let us know if you want that set up, and we'll show you how to create those artificial available start times.
So Andre, one more quick question. So let's say that we have a new patient that comes in and wants to book themselves at 8 a.m. And then we have a patient that wants to book themselves, and I don't know if we're going to let them do this yet. I think we're going to limit the system to only new consults. And again, we've got to talk about it here, but let's say we open it up to a blood draw. So the blood draw, because, and I'm just making sure I got this straight. So the blood draw, because it's assigned to the medical assistant, or the testosterone injection assigned to the medical assistant and not the doctor, it would let them schedule an 8 o'clock new consult and an 8 o'clock blood draw. Is that correct?
Not with the same patient, because the system is going to say, wait a minute, the patient can't do 2 things at once. One would have to be at like 8, and one could start at 8:15. Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. With separate patients, yes, those things can be scheduled on top because those resources don't conflict. So absolutely, you could schedule an 8 o'clock blood draw and an 8 o'clock new patient consult all at the same time.
So if I had, for example, if I had 3 medical assistants that I could do 3 blood draws, I could set it up at 8 a.m. Somebody could schedule up to 3 blood draws. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you would change the book. Remember that screen where I showed you the booking capacity? So you would simply set the booking capacity for that activity to 3 instead of 1. Like some people do that anyway with IVs, even though they only have 1 nurse, because from their perspective, that nurse can kind of manage 3 patients at once and they have 3 chairs. So they'll say,
yeah.
all right, my IV appointment has a capacity of 3. I can take 3. You know, now they got a little bit of a problem if all 3 show up exactly but usually, you know, just by the nature of thing, one patient shows up 5 minutes early, one shows up 5 minutes late, and that gives you enough time to get the IV started. And then after that, you're just monitoring it. So, but yes, you can set up the booking capacity to be whatever number you want. It doesn't
so what
have to
happens if, and I think this is going to work the same. What happens if two appointments for MAs, and I get a blood draw and a TRT, and somebody also is coming in for a weight check-in? Will it limit
not
it
at the same
those?
time. It's not going to let it happen at the same time because that medical assistant is only one person. So unless there is a setting in the system that says that the person can concurrently serve multiple appointments, which is a little different than booking capacity, but generally you're not going to want to use that. So in that scenario, it's only going to allow the medical assistant no different than the doctor. And the way to think of it is each resource, unless we set it up otherwise, each resource can only do one thing at a time. So if that medical assistant is doing a blood draw, they can't be concurrently doing a testosterone injection. The next slot might be 8:15, but they can't do 2 things at 8 o'clock. Nobody can schedule 2 things at 8 o'clock. It's going to automatically manage that.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay. Like it.
Okay. So, so we're here on the screen. What we wanted to do is try to make this ED appointment and just see if we're going to get these questions we're supposed to get. So I'm going to go ahead and click this to make it here at 8 o'clock. I've got a test patient out here, so I'm going to select my test patient here that I set up earlier. And so here's my questions. What day do you plan on going to the lab? So I'll say, you know, Wednesday, you know, whatever. I mean, I'll say Monday. What is Monday, like the 28th, 27th? Monday, 2/27, for example. And please be advised that as a new patient, you're required to have your blood work done prior. It must be done at least 5 days prior. I understand the timing requirement, so that's all. They don't have to type anything in there. It's just a statement that we're giving them. And so we've asked them when they plan on going to the lab. We click next, and they can go ahead and just finish this appointment. That's it. So our questions work exactly the way we wanted them to. The appointment has now been made, and it's firmly booked in the system. Nobody else now can book at 8 o'clock with the doctor for any other activity that requires Dr. Asandra. Okay?
Got it.
And there we go. So it's all set. Now,
Andre,
when we look at that,
one quick question. Let's pretend that sometimes we do book concurrent appointments. You know, maybe there's a patient just coming back for a redosing. Can our staff go in here and still book an appointment at that time?
We can set it up to allow overbooking. That's an overbooking function that we would have to set up. Once again, that's one of those that I can tell you that it typically creates more consternation than anything else, but we can allow that. In fact, we've got a clinic right now that goes back and forth. I think one week the doctor calls support and says, take that darn overbooking off, and then the next week the staff calls back and puts it back on. So it's another one of those that it doesn't tend to work real well, but we can allow overbooking. We can set up overbooking to be allowable.
Okay.
Okay. So, but anyway, you can see now that the physician. So now the patient doesn't get to see this. Remember, we're looking at the staff side of scheduling and not the patient side. So on the staff side, we can see the yellow, which means that the docs is taken. And we can also click View Appointments, which means we can see the appointment and get a complete description of it right there. So right from this same screen, we can just toggle between making an appointment and viewing the appointments that are actually already there and already made. So the schedule is pretty much working the way we wanted it to work. If we go to blood draw, we'll see the same kind of thing. We'll see that the medical assistant is there. And, whoops, we don't have any availability. Oops, let's see. Yeah, we don't have any availability. So we did something wrong with the medical assistant. Maybe we didn't give her a schedule. So let's go back. And so that's why you check it out before you kind of release it. So let's go back to location administration. Probably in talking, I didn't give the medical assistant a schedule. Nope, we didn't. So the medical assistant doesn't have a schedule. So we're going to add a schedule for her. And what is the medical assistant's availability?
8 to 5 as well.
Okay. So if you can't make an appointment, again, if you go on the receptionist view and you can't make it, a couple things to check. Make sure you've added a schedule. The other thing, make sure that the activity has been assigned to at least one program, and make sure it has a duration. Those are probably the 3 most commonly missed items in setup. Is we forgot to add a schedule, we forgot to add a duration. So now we have white squares, and so now we can actually make the appointment. And I'm going to go ahead and make it right on top of the other one, so I'm going to make it at 8 o'clock. Now, if I try to make it with the same patient, it's going to tell me that, should tell me that this patient already has an appointment. Yeah, see, test patient holds another appointment that overlaps, so you can't make that appointment at 8 o'clock, just not because the doctor's not available, but because the patient is not available. The patient's already busy. So we can make it at, like, say, like 9:30, for example. Now we're good, okay? So we can finish that. So there we go. So, I mean, the schedule is pretty well working like we wanted at this point. We've got a lot of reporting capabilities. So we can go over to the reports tab, and we can get, you know, we've made a couple of appointments out here, not a lot. Let's see, I can't remember what days we made them for. I think that was the, see what days was I making those appointments for. Those are the 20th. So if I go to reports and I just change this to the 20th, for example, I can then, so I'm just saying, make a, I want to run the appointment schedule report for the date of the 20th. I can view the report, and this will give you that, so there's the new patient consultation with Dr. Sandra and the 15-minute blood draw with the medical assistant, both with test patient 1. Now, if you have asked questions, you'll want to run the report that's called appointment schedule with questions, because that one will give you the answers to the questions also on the report that you run. So we're going to just change that. Now, for that one where we had questions, you can see the day going to the lab is Monday 2/27, and information about scheduling, I understand the requirement. So you can see those show up on the schedule. Yep.
Question for you. So, not that all patients are lazy, but a lot of them are. Is there any way to set a warning or a little tickler system inside this that if a patient schedules one of these 4 appointments that are going to require them to do labs, is there any way that I can create an email group to my contact center that just gives them a warning that says, hey, Brad scheduled an appointment. Can you call him and make sure he's scheduled with Quest or LabCorp?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I mean, basically what we'd be talking about is just adding another recipient email to certain appointments. I mean, another email address other than you remember. So when we make these appointments, the patient's going to automatically get an appointment confirmation, and somebody on your admin team will automatically get an appointment confirmation. I think what you're asking is for a separate one, and yeah, it's just a matter of adding another.
I think it can be, so let's just say that I make an appointment and it comes back to me that says, you know, Brad, your appointment's been successful. At that same time, we just always default, we have an email address called webleads@NuMale.com, and so if we just default web leads that they get the same email, now they can also follow up with this patient. And then I think I also told you we have a system where we text message these people.
Right.
And that'll give us the opportunity to also go in there, grab their cell phone, and send them a text.
Yeah, so we can definitely make web lead. We can add. There's several places where we can add web lead as an email address that'll get all the appointment confirmation. So not a problem at all. We can do that.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. All right. So anyway, So there's a lot of different reports here. The main ones you're going to use is appointment schedule with questions. The other one you might use from time to time is cancellation. So that will show you anybody that's canceled. So you can quickly get a list of any canceled appointments. So you can maybe spot patterns if somebody's doing a lot of canceling. You'll be able to spot patterns by getting the cancellations report. The late cancellation reports, I think that picks up anybody that canceled in the last 20, and that canceled 24 hours prior to their appointment. But you're not allowing that, so really that's not going to happen because you're not allowing that. And so that's about it. I mean, there's a lot of different reports here, but basically the main ones you're going to use is going to be appointment schedule or appointment schedule with questions. Those are going to be the main two reports you're going to use. And you can filter this report you can just get it just for one doctor, for example, or all physicians, or just some activity. So you can run all kinds of different variations. The nice thing is if you've set a bunch of these query parameters, you can always actually save the query with a certain name, and then that saved query will be there. So, if there's something that you set and you've had to set one doctor, a certain, for this week or last week or whatever, and you want to run that report on a recurring basis, just save the query using the Save Query button, and then you'll be able to rerun that query without having to make the selections all over again. Okay?
Got it.
All right. So other than that, guys, I mean, that pretty well covers, what we were going to cover in scheduling. Essentially, we make appointments from this interface here. We can manage them from either by doing view appointments or from this interface here. We go back to the day where I had a couple, February 20th. So you can see from here, I can cancel them if I want to. From here, I can modify them. I can also use this little workflow to show them in and out, like if they've come in and out. So I can use the little workflow if you like having kind of knowing who's in and who's not. So there's a lot we can do there with the workflow. But otherwise, like I said, we can, from the make appointment screen, we can always toggle it to view appointments so that we can see all the appointments on a grid this way. Okay?
Got it. Andre, I have a question for you. So in our Beverly Hills location, we are going to have, we've got, we've talked about this a little bit, we've got two distinct brands. We've got NuMale and then we have NuFem. And when in here, we're going to, I'm assuming, now for Dr. Asandra, for example, we're only going to have one provider really there that's seeing these patients. However, in Omaha, we have in one clinic, when we launch Omaha, after we get this all up and running, that'll be the number 2 clinic that we're gonna get turned on live with you. In one clinic, we have a male provider and we have a female provider.
Sure.
And so when a patient comes in and they go to schedule their appointment, can we separate them out? If they click female, they're going to go and have its own set of parameters, or if they select male, it'll have its own set of parameters.
Yeah, because what we're going to do is, even though they're one geographic location, we're going to use our logical location construct, and we're going to put all the females in one location and all the males in another location. And so from a scheduling perspective, that'll give us the ability to have totally separate schedules. So, because you're saying you got two different doctors that are one seeing males, one seeing females, you want them to see different activities. So in that scenario, the best way to model that is we'll use our location functionality to, like I said, to split them, even though they're not, even though geographically they're the same, and then therefore they'll see completely different things without them having to do anything. It'll be totally passive. They won't have to click female or male. They're just going to be in the location they should be in, and based on being in that location, they're only going to see what they should see.
Okay, and then what about in LA where Dr. Sandra is the person? So here would be the example. If a female were going to come in there to schedule an appointment, now granted I only have one doc, so I want to treat it all the same. Is she going to see my list of male appointments as well as her female appointments, or can we separate them out?
I think there's a way we can separate them out. I got to play around with one concept that I've only used one time with one clinic, but there is such a thing as, well, no, that's not going to work because campaigns go by location as well. Let me think here. Well, no, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. I think we can still do, here's what I think we can do. I think we can do, no, we can do this. Yeah, we can do, we'll still separate them by location, but we're going to run the 2 locations off the same calendar, but we can do a partial restriction on what the people that are in the female location or the male location, whichever way. We can still restrict it and still leave the calendar in one calendar. So we can, yeah, we can do it. I just thought about it because I've done it before, and not exact same construct, but I've had a situation before where somebody needed a restricted calendar for a group of patients, and we were able to do it. So yes, we can do a restricted calendar for a group within still do it against the same calendar.
Okay, and then what about the email confirmation that goes back to them? Can we brand one NuFem and one NuMale through that restriction?
Not through that restriction, but let me just check out the way that email is set up.
Because I think while you're checking on that, I think some of the other things, they're still going to go in and they're going to fill out all of their patient demographic information. And then what I would like to do is the little drip campaign that we set up for them based on their appointment selection, and I think this is all driven based on the appointment type, is that they're going to get a couple of pre-emails from us trying to educate them before they walk in the door. Is that a fair statement?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to focus on this. What was it? What was your question again?
Okay. So let's pretend that a male books an appointment and it's 5 days out, and then a female books an appointment, her appointment's 5 days out. Each of them are going to get hopefully a respective email that says, "Hey, Brad, thanks for your appointment," and it looks like it came from NuMale. The female is going to get one that says, "Hey, Kate, thanks for your appointment," and it looks like it came from NuFem. And then on top of that, based on their appointment type selection, I would like to send them one or potentially 2 emails through kind of a drip campaign that says, "Hey, Brad, we're going to see you, in the near future. We wanted to share this information with you."
Yep, and we can do all of that. Yeah, yeah, we can do that.
And that's driven by the appointment type. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'll be driven by the appointment type and using our functionality that's not part of scheduling. It's part of the master system that can, and one of the triggers that are available for that functionality is their next appointment. So basically it can trigger off a certain next appointment, and you can have content being delivered based on a next appointment that gets set up, or it can be a next appointment or a last appointment, either one. So the answer is yes, we can do all of that. Let me just finish checking on whether or not I can stratify these confirmation emails or not. It's not looking like I can, but what we might have to do in your scenario, let me just check something here. What we may need to do is just turn these off, and because we kind of have redundant functionality. These emails over here are part of scheduling, and we have the same functionality. We have similar functionality that's available in the master part of the system because anything can be appended to an appointment. So I could do my appointment confirmations out of the master system. If I do them out of there, then I have the ability to brand them separately. It doesn't look like out of here. Let me see. Oh no, yes I do. Wait a minute, yes I do, because I can change the activity in the program and the campaign. So I think the answer is yeah, I can do it. I haven't done it before, but by looking at this setup here, it looks to me that I can in fact do it. I'm just trying to figure out why when I click into here I'm not getting the choices I'm expecting to see. But it looks to me that I can definitely restrict these. Yeah, I have to do a little playing around. I have to do a little bit of playing around between now and our next session, Brad. But I think the answer is yes. I think for right now, you know, your team needs to finish up the rest of the activities that need to be set up. So I'm going to need to get on to another session here, but so your team's homework is basically to go in, finish up these activities, setting them up, finish setting up your appointment book rules for the rest of the schedule rules for the rest of the items that need scheduling. Let me cover with you guys quickly how you're going to set up your IDs. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to that URL that I mentioned before. Let me get a clear screen here. I can't do it on this one. So you're going to go to your URL, which is nmm.myemetfusion.com, and you're going to click on create a new profile. That will let you set up your new admin profile on this screen here. Once you've done that, you will not immediately have access. I have to then go in and approve you because this is obviously a public website. So basically, once you set it up, you do not immediately get access. A master user, primary admin like myself, has to then go in and enable you. Like I said, normally we would have done that in Module 1, but we didn't. We're doing them a little bit out of order. So if you guys that need IDs want to go in and set up your IDs, I'll see that you've requested IDs, and then I will go in and give you the approval so that you can go all the way into the system, okay?
Got it.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Until next time, thank you very much. I will, once I get the recording, it takes me a little bit because I have to send it to my guys, and they have to it has to be converted into a format that can go up on YouTube, and then we'll send you a link to the training so anybody that needs to watch it again can watch it again. So we have recorded this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.